The morning sun painted Mumbai's skyline in hues of amber and gold as Dr. Amara Patel stood at her laboratory window, watching a flock of birds soar past the gleaming towers of the Global Genetic Research Institute. Her fingers traced the edge of the strange iridescent feather on her desk, a feather that defied every analysis she'd run over the past week. The security footage played again on her tablet, a winged figure, at least 7 feet tall, gliding through the night sky before crashing onto the Institute's roof garden. By the time security arrived, they found only scattered feathers and drops of silvery blood that seemed to evaporate in the morning light. Dr. Petal, her assistant Rage's voice crackled through the intercom. "There's something here to see you. They're insisting it's about the feather." Amara's heart raced as she straightened her lab coat. "Send them in." The laboratory doors slid open, revealing a sight that made her breath catch. 2 beings entered, their wings folded tightly against their backs, skin sheened with an opalescent glow. The taller one, with silver-streaked midnight blue wings, stepped forward. Despite their ethereal appearance, Amara noticed the subtle tremor in their movements, the slight graying at their wing-tips. "I am Caliph," the taller being spoke, voiced melodic yet strained. "We are the Etherians, and we need humanity's help. Our species is dying." Amara gestured for them to sit, noticing how the younger Etherian's wings shimmered with weakness. "I'm Dr. Amara Patel, head of genetic research. Please, tell me everything." Caliph's story unfolded like a dream. The Etherians had lived in the upper atmosphere of Earth for millennia, their civilization hidden within the clouds. Their bodies naturally generated an electromagnetic field that kept them invisible to human technology. But now, their genetic structure was degrading rapidly, their ability to fly failing, their children born with weaker wings each generation. "Our scientists discovered something remarkable," Kenneth explained, pulling out a crystalline device that projected complex genetic sequences into the air. "Human DNA contains a resilience we've never seen before. Your species has survived countless near-extinction events, adapting and growing stronger. We believe the key to our survival lies within your genetic code." Amara studied the projected sequences, her scientific mind bracing with possibilities. The Etherian genetic structure was unlike anything she'd ever seen, a beautiful blend of avian and humanoid characteristics, but with clear signs of deterioration. "Why now?" Amara asked, noting how the younger Etherians struggled to keep their wings from dragging on the floor. "Why reveal yourselves after hiding for so long?" "Because we have no choice," Keleth answered, their voice heavy with responsibility. "Within 3 generations, our species will be extinct. Our children can barely fly for more than an hour. Our elders—" They paused, wings trembling slightly. "I am one of the last who can still reach the highest clouds." Amara's mind whirled with the implications. This could be the greatest scientific discovery in human history, a chance to not only save an ancient species, but to understand genetic adaptation in ways they'd never imagined. Yet she also saw the dangers. How would the world react to learning they'd shared their skies with another intelligent species? What would governments and military organizations do with this knowledge? "There will be those who fear you," Amara said carefully, "those who might want to exploit your existence." Caliph nodded gravely. "We know. We've watched humanity's conflicts, your wars, your prejudices. But we've also seen your capacity for compassion, for growth. That's why we chose this facility, chose you, Dr. Patel. Your research on genetic adaptation in extreme environments, it gives us hope." The younger Etherians suddenly stumbled, their wings drooping completely. Caliph caught them with practiced ease, but Amara saw the fear in their eyes. This wasn't just about scientific discovery anymore. It was about survival. Standing up, Amara made her decision. We'll need to assemble a small, trusted team. Keep your presence secret initially. I have some ideas about how we might approach this, but I'll need complete access to your genetic history, your medical records. You'll have everything, Keleth promised. But we must move quickly. Every day, more of our children are born with weaker wings. Some. They paused, pain flickering across their ethereal features. Some are born with no wings at all. As Amara began outlining immediate steps, her mind was already racing through protocols and possibilities. She knew that from this moment on, nothing in her life, or in human history, would ever be the same. The sky itself had changed, and with it, humanity's place in the world. Looking at the desperate hope in Keleth's eyes, Amara silently vowed to find a way to save them, no matter the cost. The secret of their survival might lie in human DNA, but the key to their future would depend on something equally human, the determination to defy impossible odds. The underground chamber beneath the Global Genetic Research Institute hummed with activity as Dr. Amara Patel surveyed the makeshift sanctuary she'd created for the Etherians. 3 weeks had passed since Keleth's arrival, and what began as a desperate plea had evolved into humanity's most ambitious genetic research project, though only a handful of people knew it existed. Through the reinforced glass walls, she watched as Dr. Rithik Sharma, her most trusted colleague, carefully drew silvery blood from a young Etherian named Zephyr. The boy's wings, barely strong enough to lift him, shimmered weakly under the specialized lighting they'd installed to mimic high-altitude conditions. Their hemoglobin structure is fascinating. Rithik mentioned later as they reviewed the results in Amara's private lab. It's like nothing we've seen before, capable of processing oxygen at levels that would be impossible for humans. But the degradation is accelerating. Amara nodded, studying the holographic display of the Etherian genetic sequence. Look at this pattern here. She pointed to a recurring sequence. It's almost like their DNA is trying to rewrite itself, but failing. The question is, why now? What's changed in their environment to trigger this? Their discussion was interrupted by a soft chime, the secure entrance signal. Keleth entered, their wings now noticeably grayer than when they'd first arrived. Behind them came Professor Jun Nakamura, the quantum genetics specialist Amara had carefully vetted and recruited from Kyoto University. Dr. Patel, Jum's eyes were wide with excitement. I found something remarkable in the atmospheric data you requested. He pulled up a series of charts on the main screen. The electromagnetic field the Etherians use for cloaking. It's not just for hiding. It's integral to their genetic stability. But over the past century, the field has been degrading, Keleth finished, their musical voice heavy with confirmation. We suspected as much, but lacked the technology to prove it. Human technological advancement, Amara realized. Our satellites, communications networks, the increased electromagnetic pollution, they're disrupting the field your people have relied on for millennia. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The same human progress that might hold the key to saving the Etherians had been unknowingly contributing to their decline. A commotion from the sanctuary drew their attention. Zephyr had attempted to fly, something strictly regulated in their weakened condition, and now lay crumpled on the floor, his wings trembling with exhaustion. His mother, Lizara, rushed to his side, her own wings dragging limply behind her. Amara watched as Keleth moved to comfort them, speaking soft words in their melodic language. The scene strengthened her resolve. Professor Nakamura, how quickly can you map the electromagnetic field degradation patterns? A few days. If I have access to historical satellite data, John replied. Do it. Rithik, I want you to focus on their blood chemistry. There's something about how their bodies process energy that we're missing. Amara turned to Caliph. And I need more information about your ancestors, specifically any records of previous genetic adaptations. Caliph nodded, but before they could respond, a priority alert flashed across Amara's tablet. Her heart stopped as she read the message from Institute Security. We have a problem, she announced grimly. Someone leaked information about unusual activity here. A reporter from Global Science Weekly is asking questions about strange lights and sounds coming from the Institute at night. The room fell silent. They'd known this moment might come, but not so soon. Not before they'd made real progress. Perhaps, Keleth suggested carefully, it's time to consider telling your world about us. Controlled disclosure on our terms. No, Amara said firmly. Not yet. The moment we go public, everything changes. We'll lose control of the research. Military organizations will get involved. Religious groups will demand access. We need more time. Time. Lazar spoke up from where she cradled Zephyr, is the one thing we don't have. Her voice carried the weight of a mother watching her child grow weaker by the day. Amara looked around the room, at Jun's brilliant but worried expression, at Rithik's determined focus, at the desperate hope in Lazara's eyes, and finally at Calith's quiet dignity. They trusted her with their lives, their future. She wouldn't let them down. Give me 48 hours, she decided. Jun, prioritize understanding how the electromagnetic field affects their genetic stability. Rithik, focus on their energy processing systems. I'll handle the reporter. She turned to Calith. And I need you to prepare your people. If we have to evacuate, we'll need a plan. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Amara remained behind, watching Zephyr finally rise shakily to his feet. The boy's wings might be weak, but his eyes burned with determination. In that moment, she saw the perfect symbol of their mission, the resilience of a species refusing to accept extinction, and the hope that humanity's knowledge might give them back their sky. But as she returned to her office to begin damage control, a new worry gnawed at her mind. The reporter wasn't the only one asking questions. Earlier that day, she'd noticed a black SUV parked outside the Institute, its occupants too still to be ordinary observers. Someone else knew something was happening here, someone with resources and patience. The race to save the Etherians had entered a new phase, and Amara couldn't shake the feeling that time wasn't the only enemy they were fighting against. Dawn broke over Mumbai, but in the secured laboratory levels beneath the Institute, Dr. Amara Patel hadn't seen sunlight in 36 hours. The holographic displays surrounding her workstation pulsed with streams of genetic data, human and Etherian sequences intertwined in a dance of possibility and peril. Look at this, she murmured to Rithik, who hadn't left her side during their marathon research session. The electromagnetic field doesn't just hide them, it's part of their biological processes. Their DNA literally resonates with it. A soft rustle of wings announced Calith's arrival. The Etherian elder's condition had deteriorated noticeably. Their once majestic wings now hung like tattered silk, the iridescent sheen fading to dull grey. You found something. Yes, but it's complicated. Amara manipulated the holographic display, highlighting specific sequences. Your ancestors didn't just evolve naturally, they engineered themselves. These markers, they're artificial, precise. You modified your own genetic code to survive in Earth's upper atmosphere. The revelation hung in the air like static before a storm. Calith's expression shifted, ancient wisdom warring with modern desperation. There are stories, legends of the Great Ascension, when our people chose the sky over the ground, but the knowledge was lost millennia ago. Not lost, Rithik interjected, pulling out comparative analyses. Look at these human genes, the ones that help us adapt to high altitudes, extreme conditions. They're remarkably similar to the engineered sequences in Etherian DNA. Different solutions to the same problem. Before they could discuss further, Professor Nakamura burst into the lab, his usually calm demeanor shattered. We have a security breach. Someone accessed our research network from outside the Institute. Amara's blood ran cold. How much did they get? Enough, John replied grimly. Genetic sequences, atmospheric data, energy readings. They know about the Etherians. As if summoned by the words, Amara's secure phone buzzed with a message. The sender was unknown, but the content was clear. Meet us. Alone. Midnight. Marine Drive. Or tomorrow's headlines expose everything. It's a trap, Rithik said immediately, reading over her shoulder. Of course it is, Amara agreed, but we don't have a choice. She turned to Keleth. Get your people ready to move, if this goes wrong. No, Keleth's voice carried unexpected strength. We will not run anymore. Too many of us are too weak now. And they hesitated. There's something you need to know. Something we discovered in your genetic research. The Etherian elder gestured to Lizara, who had entered silently with Zephyr. The boy looked worse than ever, his wings almost transparent now. But there was something else. Something in the way his skin seemed to shimmer under the lab lights. Show them, Lizara urged gently. Zephyr closed his eyes in concentration, and suddenly his wings began to disappear. Not fade or become invisible, but actually retract into his body, leaving him looking almost human. Impossible, Rithik breathed. Not impossible, Keleth corrected. Inevitable. Our children's bodies are adapting on their own, finding a new way to survive. They're becoming more like you. The implications staggered Amara. The genetic degradation. It's not just breakdown. It's transformation. Evolution in real time. Forced evolution, Lizara added softly, driven by necessity. But without guidance, without understanding, the process is killing them. Zephyr can barely maintain either form now. A plan began forming in Amara's mind, dangerous, controversial, but possibly their only chance. John, how quickly can you set up a quantum field generator to replicate the Etherian's natural electromagnetic field? A few hours, but it would only cover the lab. Do it. Rithik, I need you to prepare our CRISPR systems. All of them. She turned to Keleth. And I need your people's complete trust, because what I'm proposing, it will change everything. What exactly are you proposing? Rithik asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. We don't try to fix their degrading DNA, Amara explained. We guide it. Help them complete the transformation their bodies are already attempting. But we do it in a way that preserves their ability to shift between forms. You want to make us shapeshifters, Lizara realized, holding Zephyr closer. I want to save your people by helping them become what they're already trying to become. But it has to be their choice. Keleth's wings trembled, but their voice was steady. And what of the ones threatening to expose us? I'm going to that meeting, Amara said firmly. But I'm not going alone, and I'm not going defenseless. She pulled up another set of data on the holographic display. Remember how I said your ancestors engineered themselves? Well, they left us a gift, the original genetic keys to their transformation, and I think it's time we used them. As the team began preparations, Amara watched Zephyr struggle to reform his wings. The boy's determination, his resilience in the face of such profound change, reminded her why they were fighting so hard. They weren't just trying to save a species now. They were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. The next 12 hours would determine not just the fate of the Etherians, but possibly the future of human evolution itself. And somewhere in the gathering darkness of Mumbai, their opponents were waiting, unaware that what they sought to expose might change them as profoundly as it had changed Amar. The sun set outside, but in the lab, a new dawn was breaking, one that would rewrite the very definition of what it meant to be human or Etherian. The only question was whether they would survive long enough to see it rise. The midnight air hung heavy with monsoon moisture as Amara stood at Marine Drive, Mumbai's waves crashing against the seawall behind her. She wasn't alone, though to any observer it would appear so. High above, Keleth circled invisibly, their weakened wings strengthened temporarily by Jun's experimental electromagnetic field generator. Rithik and a small team monitored from a nearby van, equipment ready. A sleek black car approached, stopping precisely 10 meters away. 2 figures emerged, a woman in an immaculate business suit and a man whose military bearing was obvious despite his civilian clothes. Dr. Patel, the woman, spoke first. "I'm Director Rosewood of the Global Security Council. This is Commander Hayes. We need to discuss your guests." "Nothing to discuss," Amara replied calmly. "My research is private and fully licensed." "Your research," Commander Hayes cut in, "involves a non-terrestrial species that's been hiding on Earth for millennia. Did you really think we wouldn't notice?" A wind that wasn't natural stirred the air. Amara smiled slightly. "Actually, we were counting on it." Keleth landed gracefully between Amara and the officials, their wings spreading wide despite their weakness. The sight was magnificent enough to render even the hardened commander speechless. "If you're going to discuss our fate," Keleth announced, their voice carrying that otherworldly melody, "you will discuss it with us directly." Director Rosewood recovered first. "You understand our concerns. An unknown species with advanced biological capabilities hidden among us." "Hidden from us," Commander Hayes added sharply. "Why?" "Because of exactly this reaction," Amara interjected. "But things have changed. We're not just dealing with 2 separate species anymore. We're witnessing an evolutionary leap that could benefit both humanity and the Etherians." Back in the lab, Zephyr was demonstrating this truth. Under Jun's careful monitoring, the boy shifted between forms, human and Etherian, each transformation becoming smoother. But it was taking a toll. His strength was fading faster than ever. "Show them," Amara urged Keleth. The Etherian elder nodded and, with visible effort, began to change. Their wings didn't just disappear. They seemed to fold into reality itself, leaving behind a form that could walk unnoticed through any human crowd. The demonstration lasted only seconds before Keleth had to revert, clearly exhausted. "This is what's happening to their children," Amara explained. "Natural evolution, driven by environmental pressure. But without help, it's killing them. We can guide this process, make it viable. Think of the implications, not just for them, but for us." "Human DNA is the key," Keleth added. "Your adaptability, your genetic resilience, it's what we need to survive. And in return, our transformation could unlock human potential in ways you've never imagined." Commander Hayes' hand had drifted to his concealed weapon. "You're talking about changing what it means to be human." "Humanity has always changed," Director Rosewood countered thoughtfully. That's how we survived. She studied Caliph intently. But this needs to be controlled, regulated. Amara's phone buzzed. An urgent message from June Zephyr's readings were critical. The boy's accelerating transformation was pushing his body to its limits. They were running out of time. With respect, Amara said firmly, "We don't have time for regulations. The Etherian children are dying. Their bodies are trying to adapt, but without guidance, the process is fatal. We need to act now." "And if we refuse?" Commander Hayes challenged. Caliph's form shimmered, their voice carrying millennia of wisdom and desperation. "Then you will witness the extinction of a species that has watched over your world since before you built your first cities. And with us will die knowledge that could transform human understanding of genetics, evolution, and consciousness itself." A new sound cut through the night. Helicopters approaching. Commander Hayes smiled grimly. "Did you think we came alone?" "No," Amara replied, equally grim. "Did you?" Above them, the air rippled as dozens of Etherians emerged from invisibility, their weakened wings still magnificent in the moonlight. Below, more figures stepped out of shadows. Amara's colleagues from institutes worldwide, drawn by the promise of discovery and the duty to prevent a genocide. Director Rosewood assessed the situation with calculating eyes. "A demonstration of force isn't necessary. We can—" Her words were cut off by another urgent message. This time, Amara didn't need to check her phone. She could hear the panic in Jun's voice through her earpiece. Zephyr's crashing. The transformation, it's cascading through their whole population. We need authorization now. Amara locked eyes with Director Rosewood. "We're out of time. Right now, in our lab, children are dying. Their genetic structure is collapsing as their bodies try to adapt. We have a solution, but we need resources, protection, and official sanction. Decide now." The director looked up at the gathering of Etherians, then at her own forces. Finally, she turned to Commander Hayes. "Stand down. Dr. Patel, you have provisional authority. But we're coming to your lab. All of us. Whatever happens next, we witness it together." As they rushed back to the Institute, Amara knew they'd passed a point of no return. The next few hours would either mark the beginning of a new chapter in human evolution or witness the end of an ancient race. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on her like gravity itself, but as she caught Caliph's eye, she saw something that gave her hope. Trust. The revolution they were about to unleash wouldn't be fought with weapons, but with genes, not with violence, but with transformation. And if they succeeded, the very sky would no longer be a limit for either species. The Institute's main laboratory had become a crucible of transformation. Emergency lights cast everything in a surreal glow as Jun and Rithik worked frantically at their stations, monitoring the cascade of genetic changes rippling through the gathered Etherians. At the center of it all lay Zephyr, his form flickering between human and Etherian as his body fought to find stability. Quantum field stabilizing at 60%, Jun announced, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. The harmonic resonance is holding. Amara stood at the main console, Director Rosewood and Commander Hayes watching intently over her shoulders as she made final adjustments to the genetic sequencing. Caliph hovered nearby, their wings nearly transparent now, barely able to maintain their traditional form. The synthetic electromagnetic field is acting as a buffer, Amara explained, highlighting complex data streams. It's giving their bodies time to adapt, but we need to introduce the stabilizing sequences now. All of them? Commander Hayes asked, eyeing the gathered Etherians. At once? They're genetically linked, Rithik answered without looking up from his work. What affects one affects all. It's why they're all experiencing the transformation together. Lizara cradled Zephyr's head as another wave of change racked his small body. "Please," she whispered, her own form beginning to flicker. "We're ready." Amara looked to Director Rosewood, who gave a sharp nod. "Do it." The next few moments would be seared into Amara's memory forever. As she initiated the sequence, the air itself seemed to come alive with possibility. The specialized CRISPR delivery system, enhanced with Etherian biotechnology, released a fine mist throughout the chamber. Each droplet contained the carefully engineered genetic keys. Human adaptability merged with Etherian transformation potential. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Zephyr gasped. His body arching as golden light seemed to emanate from within. Around the chamber, other Etherians began to glow, their forms becoming fluid, shifting between states like liquid starlight. Genetic stabilization at 40%. Rithik called out, 50, 60. Caliph stepped forward, their wings spreading one last time in their pure Etherian form before they too began to change. But this transformation was different, controlled, purposeful. When it finished, they stood in human form, but with an otherworldly grace that no disguise could hide. "Quantum field harmonics reaching peak resonance," John reported excitedly. "The genetic changes are self-sustaining." Zephyr's glow faded, revealing him in perfect human form. Then, with a look of wonder, he shifted back to his Etherian self, wings strong and vital once more. The transformation was smooth, natural, as if he'd been born with the ability. Around the chamber, other Etherians were discovering their new gift. Some shifted rapidly between forms. Others maintained a blend of both, creating entirely new expressions of their dual nature. The air filled with sounds of joy, wonder, and relief. "Remarkable," Director Rosewood breathed. Even Commander Hayes seemed moved by the display. But Amara's attention was caught by something else. Subtle changes in the human observers. The scientists who had been closest to the genetic mist were showing signs of transformation themselves. Rithik's eyes had taken on an otherworldly sheen, and Jun's movements had acquired an impossible grace. "It's affecting us too," Amara realized, watching her own skin shimmer with newfound potential. The genetic bridge works both ways. "Of course it does," Caliph said softly, shifting back to their winged form with elegant ease. "That was always the true gift, not just our salvation, but the next step in both our species' evolution." Director Rosewood straightened, her practical nature asserting itself. "This changes everything. The public will need to be prepared, protocols established, training programs developed." "Already done," Amara replied, bringing up detailed plans on the main display. "We've been preparing for this possibility. The Etherians will help us understand these new abilities. In return, we'll help integrate those who wish to live among us. Others can return to the skies, stronger than before. And those of us who've been changed," Commander Hayes asked, studying his own subtly altered reflection in a screen. "We'll bridge both worlds," Caliph answered, "as we always should have been." Zephyr had found his feet now, shifting between forms with childlike delight. "Look, Mother," he called to Lizara, his wings spreading wide before smoothly vanishing as he spun in human form. Amara watched the boy play and saw in him the future they'd created, not just survival, but transcendence. The Etherians would live on, their ancient wisdom preserved in a new form. Humanity would gain abilities they'd only dreamed of, but more importantly, they'd gain perspective. The sky was no longer a barrier, but a bridge. 1 month later, Amara stood on the Institute's roof garden where this journey had begun. Beside her, Caliph watched the sunset paint the clouds in colors only Etherian eyes could fully appreciate. Below, in the city, the first public demonstrations of their success were beginning. The world was changing, coming to terms with the reality that they'd never been alone. "Ready?" Caliph asked, their forms shifting seamlessly to reveal their majestic wings. Amara smiled, feeling the new potential stirring in her genes. With a thought, she allowed her own transformation, wings of light and possibility spreading from her shoulders. Together, they took to the sky, no longer separate species but pioneers of a new age where the ground and heavens were one realm, and all barriers between them had finally fallen. As they soared through the gathering dusk, Amara saw others rising to join them. Humans and Etherians, transformed and traditional, all sharing the infinite expanse. Below, Zephyr led a group of children, both human and Etherian, in their first flight lessons, their laughter carrying on the wind. The secret of survival had indeed lain in human DNA, but the gift of transformation had been shared by both species. In saving the Etherians, humanity had found its wings. In changing themselves, both species had discovered a truth as old as the sky itself, that the greatest evolution comes not from isolation, but from union, not from fear, but from trust. And as the stars began to appear above Mumbai, they shone down on a world where the boundary between earth and sky, like the line between species, had become a horizon of infinite possibility.